Well, we're on the train to Newry, and this is a journey that I've been doing for quite a long time now. I used to take the train up a lot because it's so relaxing and I kind of enjoy it. And when I didn't have a car, especially. But I haven't been up now in several months, and really this is my first visit, in the train since both the parents died. Like, my early childhood was kind of blissful, you know. We played along, there were disused railway lines, and we played there, and it was like, it was out in the country, just a few yards from home. So we had a lot of fun as little kids, you know. But then I sort of around my 10th or 11th birthday, you know, that was 71 when the troubles really started. So everything went completely awry in the opposite direction then. And I suppose it was kind of strange to enter that as a child, because you have a very hazy grip of reality anyway, you know. So you're in a blissful, strange, happy fantasy world, and then suddenly you're in a horrible, strange fantasy world.
The work from the north and from the Irelantis work, they both kind of tap into dominant visual traditions that have been going on anyway, if you know what I mean. So I suppose, regardless of Seán or his role and so on, Ireland would have been characterised as kind of having these two strands of visual discourse, and one of them was the shock, horror, conflict, photojournalist type image from the north, and the other was the blue skies of rural Ireland, and I suppose the John Hine tradition would have been the key one. So in a sense he's only responding to the images he finds to hand, and the images that he finds around him are used then in whatever images he's making at that time.
But I was always making things as a child. I always wanted to make. I just had an instinct to make things, take things apart as well. But I didn't consider it a creative thing. You know, I still don't really consider myself very creative.
Really?
No. It seems to me natural, and I don't consider myself very imaginative. But definitely I can see very clearly now that was a resort, you know, a retreat to the imagination. And also the possibility of change, I suppose. If you're doing things or making things, then somehow something might change somehow.
I think the Irelantis is definitely some kind of a flight, but whether it's a kind of a flight away or whether it's a flight toward is the question. And I prefer to think of it as a flight toward, a sort of enlarged notion of the possible, or a flight towards the idea that past and present aren't so. They aren't so kind of solid, that they do kind of interrupt and interweave all the time, and that we get these kind of funny flashbacks, and that our lives aren't quite so sort of one-dimensional as we often try to kind of cod ourselves.
I mean, that is a defining kind of memory thing. One of the things that I can still remember very vividly is waking up, and I must have been 10, and hearing big armoured cars outside going, you really like the one. We were just outside the window and looking out, and the whole place been kind of saturated with soldiers and armoured cars, and watching through the Venetian blinds and seeing a couple of the neighbours been led away. We're in this tiny cul-de-sac, and like it was just all soldiers, and this was the morning of internment when they kind of swooped and lifted several hundred suspects. That must have been a very affecting thing, you know. I was so young. It's very vivid anyway, the memory.
Was it frightening, do you think? Do you remember?
It was frightening. I think like a fully armed soldiers in your garden is frightening. It was a feature for a long time in most people's lives, in Newry anyway, definitely, that, you know, you would hear noises at the back, and there would be soldiers in the back garden, you know, because they'd go through the back gardens and their normal patrols, so that became a completely normal thing for soldiers to be in the back garden. It must be my formative experience. It must have influenced everything. I mean, I think it made me an artist, really, and you know, there was that element of luck that I had the subject and the terrible urge to do something, and found a medium that fitted it, you know.
I mean, a lot of the pictures are also very sad, and they have a kind of Oh, a poignancy. Certainly some of the earlier work, the photomontage work from Newry, the Gilligan series. I mean, this is clearly a boy growing up in a place he doesn't want to be, and kind of using what he has to hand again just to try to body forth a different way, or that the world could be different. And even just doing that, just showing that the world could be different in it, even if it's that big, that world is different from the one that's around you. I think that's really where I, you know, hats off to somebody like Seán.
Seán was his own man, and Seán lived in a world of his own at that stage and still does. Had his shed specially built out the backyard, and him and Daddy used to mechanic and take things apart and put things together, and that was Seán his young life. It would have been nice and easier for him as well as everybody else, I suppose, if he had a wage coming in every month, but that wouldn't have been Seán's way. He wouldn't have worried about the wages. He did what he had to do, and that was the way he chose to live his life. And well, it has worked out.